Have you ever wondered how a country, a whole nation, tells its own story? Well, for a huge chunk of the 20th century, America did it with a movie camera. Today, we're going to dig into the archives to see the story it wanted to tell, and just as importantly, the stories it didn't.
I mean, really think about it. It's a huge question, right? You can build monuments, you can write textbooks, but how do you create one single shared story that millions of incredibly diverse people can all see themselves in?
Well, for America, the answer for a long time was film. And we're not just talking about Hollywood blockbusters. The movie camera became this powerful tool used to shape hearts and minds, to really define what it even meant to be American. Okay, so let's start at the beginning. This whole effort really kicks into high gear during the 1-2 punch of the Great Depression and World War II. These were times when national unity wasn't just some nice idea, it was absolutely essential for survival. And get this, the government basically became its own movie studio. Yep, state agencies started producing all these films. And their purpose was super clear. It wasn't just to inform people, it was to persuade them, to boost morale, and to build this very specific picture of a nation pulling together as one. And the message in these films was so consistent. It was deliberate. You had films like We Work Again, showing these integrated workforces, or Henry Brown Farmer and The Negro Soldier, which celebrated the contributions of Black Americans to the war. The official story being beamed across the country was all about inclusion and a shared national purpose. I mean, listen to this quote from The Negro Soldier. It just says it all, right? It's powerful, it's unifying, and it sends a crystal clear message, hey, we are all in this together. But, and this is a huge but, the story on screen was not the full story. While these government films were busy promoting this perfect image of unity, the reality for Black Americans was, a segregated military and just brutal discrimination back home. So the camera was telling one story, but everyday life was telling a completely different one. All right, so World War II ends and a new, much quieter kind of conflict begins. This brings us to part 2, the Cold War. The camera gets a new assignment. It's now a weapon in a war of ideas. And you have to remember, the post-war world was just buzzing with tension. The Cold War kicks off, the Red Scare is gripping the country, and then, right in the middle of all of it, you have the landmark Brown versus Board of Education decision, which starts to unravel legal segregation. It was a complicated time. So now, the enemy wasn't a foreign army you could see. It was an idea, a competing ideology. And because of that, the goal of these films had to shift. It wasn't about mobilizing for battle anymore. It was about defining and defending what it meant to be American. And you can see this perfectly in a short film from 1945 starring, of all people, Frank Sinatra. He's breaking up a group of boys who are bullying a kid for his religion and his core message of tolerance that was being promoted as a fundamental American value. It was a very clear jab at the perceived intolerance of Soviet communism. And yet, here we go again. We see this tension pop up. While that polished, official story is being put out there for everyone to see, other cameras are starting to capture something completely different, a much more raw and intimate reality. A perfect example is this film called All My Babies. Now, on the surface, it's just an educational movie for training midwives in Georgia, but it does so much more. It gives us this powerful, unfiltered look at life, at poverty, and at this incredible community resilience in the rural South. It showed a slice of America that was totally missing from those big, grand ideological films of the time. Okay, so let's move into the 1960s, because this is where everything changes. This brings us to part 3, the Civil Rights Movement. That tension we've been talking about between the official story and the real story is about to explode, and the camera is about to be transformed forever. This right here, this is the pivot point of our entire story today. The camera stops being just a top-down tool of the government and becomes this bottom-up instrument of social change, picked up by activists and, crucially, by the press.
250,000. Just let that number sink in. That's how many people showed up for the March on Washington in 1963. And because TV cameras were there, this massive, historic event was beamed directly into the living rooms of millions of Americans.
And because those cameras were rolling, this moment, this iconic speech, wasn't just heard by the 250,000 people on the mall. Nope, it was burned into the national consciousness forever. The camera took a protest and made it a permanent part of the American story. And here's where things get really interesting.
Activists quickly realized the camera wasn't just a passive observer. They could use it. It could be a strategic weapon, a tool to expose injustice on a national stage and force the country to finally look.
I mean, the strategy of the Freedom Riders is the absolute masterclass in this. It was brilliant, and it was so incredibly brave. Step 1. Integrated groups get on buses to defy segregation laws. Step 2. They intentionally provoke a response, but non-violently. Step 3, and this is key, they made sure news cameras were there to document the brutal, violent reality. That shocking footage became undeniable proof that created so much public pressure that the federal government had no choice but to step in and act. So, let's zoom out and recap this incredible journey we've just followed. We've seen a dramatic evolution in the camera's power and in who got to wield that power to shape America's story. This chart really lays it all out. In the 40s, it's the state holding the camera, trying to persuade and unify. By the 50s, you start to get documentarians in the mix, capturing other realities. But look at the 60s. The power has truly shifted. It's now the people and the press using the camera to expose what's wrong and demand change. When you boil it all down, it comes to this. The cameras started out as a tool that told America the story it wanted to hear about itself. But it evolved into a tool that showed America the truth, the complicated, difficult, and real truth of what it actually was. And you can see that power shift right here. Look at that. In just a couple of decades, control of the national story goes from being held in one place, by the state, into the hands of many. It's a huge change.
Which of course leaves us with a really important question for right now. We just watched the power of the camera shift from the state to the people. But today, right now, with a powerful camera literally in every single person's pocket, who controls the narrative now?